Hi guys, and welcome to episode 7 of Music with Paul. I hope you're all okay. I know some of you are back at school now, which is great, and hope you're enjoying that. The rest of you, I hope you're still doing okay at home. We've got a lot to get through today, so I'm not going to talk too much now, including a new section for you today. So I hope you enjoy that. Let's crack on. So for our warm-up this week, I've got a very special ear training game for you. So it's going to play you some notes, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. And then it's going to play you some notes and you've got to guess what they are. So you've heard them already, but then it gives you another note and you've got to guess which one it is in that scale. Okay, hopefully it will make sense. It will give you a few seconds to work it out, and then you can guess and then see if you get it right. It will tell you the answer straight away afterwards. Okay, don't worry if you get it wrong. It's quite hard actually. But if you like it and enjoy it, you can always go back and do it again and see if you can get it right next time. This is really good for training your ear to be able to recognize the different notes. See how you get on and hope you enjoy it. So in last week's theory lesson, we learnt the notes on a keyboard, on the piano, and we looked at all the white notes, didn't we? We knew that there was A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then back to A, B, C, D, E, F, G again, and you all did really well with that. Today, we're going to learn what the black notes are, okay? Now, I deliberately left these out last time because they're a little bit more complicated, all right? The reason why they're more complicated is because they have two names, okay? I'll explain what I mean in a minute. So if you look at a keyboard, okay, you've got C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and in between most of those notes, you've got a black note. Okay, now these black notes are known as sharps or flats. Now, their name changes depending on what key you're playing in, which might not make any sense to you, and don't worry, we'll explain that in another lesson. But yes, they're sharps or flats, okay? Now, sharp just means that you move the note up slightly, and flat means you move the note down slightly, okay? So as you can see here, the symbol for a sharp looks a bit like a hashtag, and the symbol for a flat looks like a kind of weird letter B. Okay, so if you ever see a hashtag looking thing in music, that's symbolized as a sharp. So if you saw that next to a note on a stave, you'd know that you need to go up a little bit. And if you see the little flat sign, the little B next to a note, you'd know that you'd have to make it slightly lower. So if we look at this first one here, the note in between C and D, you'll see that there's a black note in between C and D. Now here's the complicated part. That can either be called C sharp or D flat, okay? So if you're thinking about going up from C, it's C sharp. If you're thinking about coming down from D, it's D flat, okay? So the next one up, the next black note, the one between D and E, is known as a D sharp or an E flat. Does that make sense? Okay. Now you'll notice there isn't a black note between E and F. Okay. So we don't worry about that. If we move up, we've got F to G and the black note in between there. So again, you probably guessed that's either F sharp or G flat. Okay. Next one up from that, G, and then we go back to A. And again, in between those two, you've got a black note, and that could either be G sharp or A flat. And finally, the last black note that we're going to look at, in between A and B, is either A sharp or B flat. Now, you'll see here that between B and C, again, there's no black note. So you just go from B to C, okay? Now, I hope that makes sense. They can have two names, all right? So again, either a sharp or a flat, depending on which way you're going and what key you're playing in, all right? But all I want you to do is try and learn the names of those notes and learn both names, okay? So if I said to you, oh, find B flat, you'd know that to go to B and you go down the little bit and then it's the note next to the B there, in between the A and the B, okay? But also if I said find A sharp, you could also find that same note and know where it is, okay? Sounds a bit weird, sounds a bit complicated, but it will all make sense. Now, the only other thing I want to tell you is that the distance between two notes, so the distance between C and D, for example, is known as a tone, okay? A whole tone. And so to go to the black note, it's a semitone, because semi means half, so you kind of go halfway between C and D, which makes sense because C sharp is halfway in between C and D. Now, the reason there's no black note between E and F is because the gap between E and F is a semitone, okay? That sounds weird, doesn't it? But yeah, there's no black note, and you'll hear that it's actually only half a step up from E to F. And I'm going to explain why that is in another lesson. For the time being, don't worry about it. Just learn the names of these notes. So you've got C sharp or D flat, okay? D sharp or E flat, F sharp or G flat, G sharp or A flat, and A sharp or B flat, okay? If any of that doesn't make sense to you, go back through and look at it again and just learn the names of those notes, okay? And then it'll all become clearer as we go on, all right? Now this is our new section for our music lessons, and this is where I'm going to teach you about the various families of instruments, particularly in an orchestra. If any of you have seen an orchestra, it has loads of different instruments in it, in different sections, and those sections are called families, and they're divided up into kind of how the instruments are made or how they're played. So the first one we're going to look at today is the string family. Now, you might be thinking, why are they called the string family? Can you guess? Yeah, exactly right. They're all the instruments that have strings on them, and you use the strings to make the sound, okay? So, in a typical orchestra, the string family will consist of a violin, a viola, a cello, a double bass, a harp, and sometimes a guitar. You don't always have a guitar in an orchestra, but sometimes you do, depending on what the pieces of music are that you're playing. Now, there are other stringed instruments. We've looked at some in other lessons. We've looked at the sitar, things like banjos are stringed instruments. But in the orchestra, these are the traditional instruments that you'd have. Now, of those stringed instruments, the violin is the smallest, and it's probably the one that you're most used to seeing. You hold it under your chin like this, and you use a bow to play it. So you move a bow which has lots of hairs on it, usually made of horsehair, and you move those across the strings, and it makes the strings vibrate, and it makes a lovely sound if you're good at it. If you're not very good at it, it doesn't make a very lovely sound. Like me, I'm not very good at it, and when I play a violin it sounds awful. But if you're a good violin player, it sounds really good. So they're the smallest ones, and they're the highest in pitch. A viola is very, very similar, but it's a little bit bigger and has a lower string on it. So it makes a sort of lower sound, but only a little bit lower. Then you have a cello, which is quite a bit bigger, and you have to sit down to play that, and you have it upright, and you bow it like this in front of you. And then you have a double bass, which is even bigger, and only sort of big people play the double bass because you have to be quite tall, and they're quite massive, and you bow those. You can also pluck the strings, and you can use your fingers to pluck them like you would do on a guitar or on a bass guitar or anything like that. But in an orchestra, they're usually bowed. Now, a harp is a bit different. It's got lots and lots of strings, and it sounds very beautiful. Sometimes you have harpists at weddings and things like that because it's like a very romantic, lovely sort of sound. I'm sure you all know what a guitar sounds like. So all I'm going to do is play you a few little clips of what these instruments sound like, so you can have a look at them and hear them in action and learn which instruments are in that family. Okay? So this week we're going to look at the steel pan drum, which is a percussion instrument from Trinidad and Tobago. Now, the steel pan drum originally was made by using big industrial barrels, like metal barrel drums, and they would bash the bottom of them in to make like a bowl in the top, and sort of make little divots in it, little dents, and the deeper you make the divot, the tune, the note changes. And they'd use little sticks to hit the different side craters they'd made in the drum, basically, to make different pitched sounds. The sort of music that you hear this in mainly is calypso music, and you've probably heard it a lot before. You'll recognise the sound. You have it at a lot of festivals now and things like that, and it sounds really cool. I'm not going to say much about it. I'm just going to play you some music and see what you think. So time for this week's music challenge. You've guessed it. I want you to find 5 bands or artists beginning with the letter E. Now again, I'll remind you, please don't just find them and write the names down. I really want you to listen to them, discover some new music basically. Find a band or an artist, have a listen, see what you think. It doesn't matter if you don't like it, you might not like it. But yeah, see if you can find some cool stuff out and see what you think. Thanks again for watching your music lesson. I'm enjoying doing them, so I hope you're enjoying watching them too. I hope you're all staying safe, and I look forward to seeing you soon, hopefully.